Hey guys, I got a special guest today. We have Troy Rice. He's the founder and CEO of Farm Brigge and Snappier, with a passion and a mission to lead change for agriculture sustainability and food literacy for our youth. Troy and his wife Tiffany were determined to create and teach a better food environment for their kids, local communities around them. In 2019, Troy and Tiffany created Farm Brigge, which supports farms, farm workers, farmers markets, and local consumers. And in 2021, they launched Snappier, which is a farmers market technology that creates ease and access to locally grown, healthy food and improves the process of food assistance programs at farmers markets. Troy, how are you doing today? You got impressive stuff on the paper. What's going on? Let's get behind that though. Who are
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Well, first of all, man, Jordan, thanks for having me. I know we met a while ago. It feels like just yesterday, but it's like almost a year ago now. I feel like, and so it's incredible that we share this time together. But yeah, all that aside, all the language, the text, the technology, where it really comes from is about 4 years ago, I hit a wall of depression, and it really sunk in deep with me. And it comes from a place of not necessarily like having nothing. It comes from a place of actually having success, but not success in the things that I care about. And so I woke up one day and I was having, a successful career in insurance for 10 years, doing a multiple different capacity of roles. First started to learn that I love helping people because I had an opportunity to build culture programs like recognition and talent development and things like that. But would come home, and at that time we had just the two kids. Now we have four, and I never wanted to share anything. Like I never wanted to talk about what I did at work, not with my wife, not with my kids. I wasn't proud of what I did, and it wasn't that I wasn't helping people. It just was nothing that I cared about, and so that didn't come through. And when I wanted to communicate it with those that I love, and so I got to this point where I just felt like nothing mattered anymore. And like I've always been a big dad, like a fun dad, like put me outside and I'll do kickball with all the neighbor kids and my kids, right? Like that's me. And it just nothing felt fun anymore. Because I would come home and I just would hate the way that my life was kind of projecting. And so I had some deep thought. I had my back against the wall for a figure of speech, and I decided that two things that I would love would be to figure out how to work in agriculture, because food health was becoming a priority for my wife and I, and then our kids, and then education. And I didn't know what that looked like. The only thing that I could lean on was from an education standpoint. I grew up as a child being bullied. It's funny nowadays I say it to the people that I'm closest to in the last few years, and they look at me and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And so when I grew up as a kid, I had a lot of problems at birth. I had a lot of surgeries, eye surgeries, ear surgeries, and one of the biggest ones was I had a lazy eye. Both of them were bad, but one was really bad, and so I had to wear these huge thick bifocal glasses. And like when you think about glasses nowadays and you think about Warby Parker and the things that people can buy and try on and everything, it's less of a concern. Like I see more people wearing glasses today than I did then, and nobody cares. But back then, like I would spend every single day like in tears because everybody would put me down, pick on me, even knock my glasses off my face on the bus and stomp on them. And I like school was not a safe place for me. So it wasn't until fifth grade I had surgery, and I started to gain a little bit more confidence. I was always a good athlete, so I had that to lean on. People looked up to me because I was good at sports, even if I, appearance wise, didn't go well with friends. And so I decided that was my education journey. I was going to start talking in schools about how I felt back then, how I channeled that to empowerment now, and being an entrepreneur and a tech founder, and then get people to ask better questions when they're younger. And instead of saying, shunning bullies for their actions, whether it's physical or verbal, asking them why, or having a teacher ask them why, or have a parent ask them why. Because what I soon learned is most bullies come from a place of the same aspect as the victim, which is insecurity. And it comes in the form of having a poor home life, having not good foundation and support system, being able to wake up every day and feel confident and just doing anything, whether that's the way you feel or the way you act. And so what happens is most cases bullies act out on that. And it comes in the shape of putting others down to help them gain that confidence. And so I just teach, I would travel around schools and talk about perspectives of bullying. And then I coupled that with growth mindset. And I know, Jordan, you're really big on this too, but getting kids at an early age to think about eliminating the fixed beliefs that a traditional school system kind of boxes them in to think about, and start to get out of their comfort zone, start to play in the creativity journal, start to think about what it looks like to build something that they can leave as a legacy behind. And I don't care how old you are, 8 years old, let's call it. Because when you're 5, like, I want to be a doctor, a firefighter, or who else, and everybody's laughing and making smiles about it. And then as soon as you grow through the system, and then whoever is your support system as you grow up into adolescence, you start to get shaped into the world or the life that other people kind of set out for you. And that's not really, on my belief, what we're on this earth to do. And so I started talking about that. And then lastly, like, how do you become a tech founder in agriculture? I was determined to give myself better health. And then my wife and I wanted to understand where food comes from, what social injustice is in the food systems, why we've gotten to where we are, and the companies that kind of keep us there for people that struggle with being obese or unhealthy, and then figure out what I could do in that space, if anything, and then go ahead and turn that around for my kids, because I didn't want them to live the childhood that I did, which, besides bullying, I grew up in a traditional American family. Like, we had dinner in front of a TV, like on TV trays. I had fast food every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I ate cereal like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I actually put time into food and prioritizing my health. And so it was just this poor trajectory that you never learn until you get to like an age where you have to do something, right? Before
Yeah.
things start to break down. And I didn't want my kids to get to that. So we do everything with them. We take them to farms. We cook in the kitchen. We talk to them about food dyes. We talk to them about sugar intake, everything. And they start to question things at school. They start to observe things. They start to ask me about why so-and-so was eating such at lunch and all that. And so we become in this place of giving them the education that they need to make their own choices when we're not around. And that's the best case scenario, where Kellen comes home and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I did this today." And I didn't have to stand in the room and tell him, "Yeah, well, is that a good choice?" I just let him make that choice and then give him the education he needs.
Wow. You dropped a lot there. That was pretty profound. Um, let's start off first with what you started off with, how a lot of people might be feeling, where they went down a career and they feel accomplished, and yet you still felt empty inside.
Mm.
What was the trigger that really caused you to make a change and jump into these other dynamics of your life? Because a lot of people, it's get a house, get the white picket fence, have the kids, have the wife,
Mhm.
happy life, but not for everyone. And so what was this?
Yeah. Um, at an essence, it was determining that I wasn't going to lead a life on somebody else's terms. And I think we all fall into this gap, which is, if we don't have a plan for ourselves, then we live by somebody else's plan. And it doesn't mean that that doesn't come with success, because like I said, I was able to grow in accounting and strategy, and I was getting paid 6 figures in my role, and it was continuing to progress, but it was leading somebody else's life plan, right? And it was
Yeah.
impacting everybody else's life plan. And so that's where the change happened. It was when I realized that continuing to contribute on somebody else's life journey instead of my own would only put me in a hole.
Yeah.
And so that's where it started with the questions. The last piece was observations. Like, it's weird. Like, when you walk around, especially in particular like this office of this company, every single person walking into the office, walking around to the office, like, has their head down. There's like zero vibrancy, right? Like, they just either absolutely hate their life at home, or they hate their job, or both. And it's like, how do we get to this place? Like, the systems of today put these golden handcuffs on us where if they give us just enough of a nugget to stay in something, we do it because it's
Yeah.
easy to be complacent. And so as I was building these culture programs, I was slowly observing the life that I wanted to lead myself. And
Yes.
it took the last two or the digging into the two things that I believe would make at least progress in and give myself fulfillment that I could turn around and be proud of. And that's kind of how it led into education and agriculture.
Yeah, that's amazing. And at what age was this transition? I don't want to
Yeah.
like I'm just curious because a lot of people think 30 is young, 35 is old, 25 is old, got to have it figured out at 22. So when was this realization for yourself?
32.
Yeah.
32, man. And I mean, I would probably tell you that I probably battled on and off depression for a couple of years within that range,
Yeah.
like the 30 to 32, and then glimpses of happiness, kind of bring it back to reality. But, they say like, if you ask one basic question, which is the things that you love throughout the day, do they not feel fun anymore? Then you start to feel like you're going down that mental journey of depression. And
Yeah.
I wasn't going to allow that to happen, not for myself and not for my kids.
Yeah. And I think we're all glad you made that choice because at least we're able to have this conversation today. And as we kind of dive into this, it's really fascinating because there's many people that are having these issues and these choices, and they don't feel like there's a way out. So I think the best thing you did is took action,
Mhm.
realized what you were slightly passionate with or could be passionate with. It's the same thing how I started my podcast. It was I think this would be cool. Who knows? Like,
Yeah.
and you just start getting it going and it starts and it becomes exciting and it's fun and you meet amazing people like yourself and you start going down that journey and learning and continuing to grow. So
Yeah.
it's
So let
interesting.
me
Yeah.
tell you what that looks like, because that's a perfect example to land on, right? Because if you're in a place of this is me, I need to do something and take action. Well, sometimes we don't take the action because we're always looking for the right action to take. And it's never about that, right? It's never about like it has to be this particular thing and it has to turn out to this particular outcome. And that's never true. And so, in short, like this is what that looked like. Like 4 years ago, I just started meeting with people in the community and learning about food systems. I have zero technical background on technology or anything, right? Then I talked to my friend one day about passive real estate investments and started buying a bunch of books and learning about what it looked like to own rentals and passive income. And then, a year and a half later, after doing all the research and learning, bought two rental properties across the US to generate the passive income. And I thought like that was the direction I was going to head, right? Then I built a speaking business and started going around traveling and speaking and everything. And that kind of got terminated when COVID hit in 2020 a little bit, but then shifted away from that. And then within agriculture, like today's Farm Bridge and today's Snappier weren't what they were 3, 4 years ago. Like Farm Bridge was a hack together online farmers market that only ran in the state of Michigan that worked with a ton of pain points, a ton of struggles. I had no freaking clue what I was doing. And I ended up having to shut it down because I didn't have enough resources or the tech build for it to work. And then the following year, we launched something different because I didn't want to give up. And then that didn't work either. And so we shut that down. And then all of that led to it led to other connections, networks, people paying attention, people that are like-minded that you attract. And all of a sudden I found this amazing 10X incubator and Jared Yellen co-foundership for both companies. And now I have the support system needed to be able to design something that I hope works. We don't know for a fact or not. But what I'm really getting at is like 4 years ago, I didn't just take a marker and a whiteboard and draw out my life's plan and say, this is how it's going to be. I just took one step towards somewhere where I wanted to be. And then I continued to progress towards that. And all of a sudden, like the network of people, how I felt every day, the way I interacted with my kids and my wife, like everything just changes. And if you just continue to wake up and keep moving it forward, then it'll keep getting you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think you brought up an amazing point that we have to be a gauge on ourselves. We have to understand where we're at each and every day, and feeling that progression is what's going to make the difference in our lives. So, for yourself, when you started FarmBridge and you started diving into this, how did you feel? Because you just told us how you faced what people would call quote unquote failure. And did you want to give up? And did you want to quit? And how was that experience for you? And but before we dive into that, let's start with, so you started creating FarmBridge, and what was the original objective? And then we'll take it to the present day where it is.
Yeah. So in 2018, when we learned about local food systems, that's when we learned a lot about farming and farmers markets, and that farmers markets are one of the main revenue streams for local farms. And by local farms, I predominantly mean small to mid-sized farms, not large commercialized commodity farms. And the reason that is because our food systems have created a way where those farmers really can't get into like your Walmarts or your Costco's or whatever, because they have contracts with large farms. And then also there are companies behind the scenes like Monsanto and Conagra Brands that own a lot of everything within the food space, from the seeds to the companies to the mass production of corn and soy and wheat or whatever is needed for processed food, right? And so because of how all of that works, these small to mid-sized farmers end up crunched. Like they can't find a way to get their food to consumers. And we need these farmers because they're the ones that are giving back to the soil health that we need on this planet. And so my mission was, how can I make it easier for these farmers to be able to reach consumers without having it to be a traditional farmers market where they come on a Saturday, they have to make time for it, they have to find parking because logistically they're nightmares at every single market across the US. And how could we build that journey? And so the initial was, well, let's create an online farmers market model that runs for that market, where a customer can go and select a market in their area, pre-shop it ahead of time, and then enjoy an express pickup where they could show up at the market, pull up with their car, and then grab their purchased goods from the farms that are there that they purchased ahead of time and go. And the reason we did that is we learned the demographic of people that traffic a market are typically ones that live right next to a farmer's market, so it's really easy for them to walk or bike or ride down there, right? B, they're typically an older generation, right? They've been used to farmers markets, so they go and they learn that that's how they meet with their farmers and their food, and so they go. But the younger generations at that time were not. And it's different where you're at, but predominantly where we were at in Michigan, they just weren't. Like your younger generations, some of them didn't even know where a farmer's market was, like unless their family ever talked about it, right? And so maybe if we created this technology solution, we would start to bridge the gap between generational, we would start to bridge the gap between convenience, and we would start to bring that back to the farmers so that they could be sustainable. Because at that time, it was a 20% bankruptcy rate for small and mid-sized farms, and it was continuing to skyrocket 5% every year over the last 5 years. So, and it's still a concern because of the way that food systems are set up. And we've done something uniquely creative now that we'll probably get into a little bit later here. But that was step one, and it could have worked. It didn't work because one, it was just me and a small team, and we had no idea what we were doing, and I didn't have the right support system, and I didn't ask the right questions then. Than I do now. And so it was never going to work. But from there, like, because when I was in corporate, I got a lean green belt, so process improvement. If you've heard of Six Sigma, I was helping efficiencies in the company. And so I took that expertise and I applied it in farming. And so every time I met with a farmer in the community here, I would help build them better processes. We would document, we would observe, we would help build in profitability and efficiency into their farm, knowing that they struggled with getting things out the door, with hiring, with resources, with sales, with pricing, with managing the accounting and the invoicing, like everything. And so I was using lean in farming, and it ended up being more called lean farming, right? To help the farmers build better bottom lines. And so that was like phase two, right? That's completely different. But that was like phase two. And then now we're back to this new model, which is very similar to the mission in the beginning, which is basically allowing any health individual in a neighborhood or a chiropractic clinic, a health coach clinic, whatever, be able to buy a Farm Bridge online farmers market model and run it from their house. And that brings local food to their community.
Oh wow. And what's the importance on this local food? Is it like there's a lot of easy ways to get food. We can get it from McDonald's, we can get it from Wendy's, we can get it from Subway, we can get it from the acai bowl place. Like what's the
Yeah.
infatuation with the local food?
Yeah, well, local economy is on the highest scale, right? I mean, if money spent within a local economy typically circulates within that economy. But soil health, the number one reason, or one of the number one factors of carbon dioxide or emissions into the atmosphere is from food. And it's because we waste over 40% of the food that we produce in the United States. And for decades, we've degraded our lands. And what that means is farmers over time have learned about different fertilizers, pesticides. Glyphosate is one of the most commonly known ones. It's familiarized as Roundup to an individual. If you have Roundup in your garage and you spray it on your grass lawn or to kill your weeds, well, farmers use fertilizer like that to kill pests and everything, and then hope that they get better yields out of their crops. But what that means is it degrades the nitrogen in the soil and the carbon in the atmosphere, and it causes problems. In addition to that, it also causes inflammation for our bodies. And so what I mean by that is when we're consuming the fertilized foods, and then we're also consuming like high processed crackers, granola bars, or whatever that have tons of sugar, tons of wheat gluten, and all that, we're continually to inflame our bodies. And so we're walking around on Earth and we just feel sick. And so why I focus so much on local farms is a lot of your small to mid-sized farms already practice either certified organic practices or regenerative farming practices, which means that they have built an ecological system on their farm that not only focuses on non-fertilized, non-chemical practices, but also giving back to the soil. So they're using grazing with animals. They're using ponds or local waterways to kind of add the nitrogen. They're planting trees around their farm to add back the nitrogen to the soil. And so regenerative farming is been around for a while, but a lot of your small to mid-sized farmers are the advocates for this, and we need it. And so besides selfishly being able to consume locally grown nutrient food, which if it travels less than 25 to 50 miles, then as soon as it's cut off of the plant, like you get the amazing nutrients of that. But as soon as it's cut off the plant from California or even as far as China, which is where most apples come from in a typical grocery store, but most people don't know that, then there's no nutrients anymore, right? Because it's already traveled on a ship. It's already taken multiple days, or even if it's traveled from California, it's taken a couple of days and bounced around in the back of a truck. And so we think that we're consuming high vitamin foods, and we're not. And so that's why we focus heavily on that. Is there's so much to be said about the planet and the food, and then giving that back to our bodies.
Yeah, I appreciate that explanation because I'm not an expert in this, and I enjoy hearing your level of excitement raised as we discuss it further. Um, but just continuing diving in on this, what is it that people can do to kind of combat this issue of you're telling me that my apples are from China? How am I supposed to know? Like, like just in a very simple example there, I go to the food store, I go to my Publix, I'm in Tampa, and I trust the food store, I thought.
Yeah, it's hard because food it shouldn't, or it should, but it doesn't have traceability. Unless you go to a farmer's market, you're getting it directly from the farmer, right? That grew it, or you're running some type of local delivery model where that the food is coming from those local farmers. But as soon as you step into a large grocery store, typically, if that store is run on profitability and cost, then they're buying on the best margins, which is usually exploiting labor somewhere else. And so a lot of our food is typically grown in South America or overseas because it's cheaper to grow it there. It's cheaper to farm it there. It's cheaper labor. And so that allows the store to gain the profitability margins that they need. And then there's no law that requires them to place a traceability sticker on there to tell you where it comes from. Now,
Yeah.
you will see, like, if you buy a bag of apples or something, sometimes that it'll say, like, this is a product of Costa Rica or whatever, and at least gives you some type of country origin. But if you're buying whole food, like just straight off the shelf, and it doesn't come in a bag and it's labeled that, then you really have no idea. But the one thing I like to share with like family and friends is like, if you go to a grocery store and you buy an array of different apples, and there's like, hundreds of different types of kinds, right? Just look at how glossy it looks, because the reason that it looks so pretty is because they've genetically modified the skin and how it grows so that customers will buy it and so that it looks attractive on shelves. And so you can better believe like that came from some place probably far away where they can genetically modify that particular plant so that people will buy it. And it really is. It's a huge marketing game out there for people to be able to buy something that entices them. And obviously red is a perfect example of that because apples are red. But that's kind of a good example of what happens behind the scenes. And even if somebody it's easy information to find, but if you don't know what to search for, then you don't know. But if you were to search for the number of apples produced and distributed to local grocery stores, you would see that a lot of it comes from places like China. And not from your local farmers right down the road or in a different state.
Wow, that's pretty impactful. And for you, when we start diving into this topic and realizing that these food stores are having issues, obviously you want to shop with local farmers. What difference have you seen in your life eating this way, shopping this way, seeing the transition in your kids? Because I know, we talked about this before. I was at Tony Robbins, and he talked about the sugar intake and how we spike ourselves constantly by eating the normal foods. And so this last week, I've been sitting here kind of trying to combat that, but I don't know where to fill the void with. So I end up, yeah.
I mean, so first of all, if you have access to any healthy food, then that's where you should go. I mean, anytime I have these conversations, I don't want to assume that people have access to local farm food and then be negligible in that. And so if you can't attend a local market, or accessing local food or talking to your farmer is not really available to you yet, right? I should say yet, then use whatever source you have, but then use the information that you're talking about, which is understand what sugar does to your body, like understand what gluten does to your body, understand what lactose does to your body. Because when I was having a conversation with my son, Kellen, who's 9, it wasn't, hey, Kellen, you should not eat gluten, right? Because a lot of the propaganda that we see floating around, social media or whatever is like, don't eat gluten or don't eat dairy or whatever, or this is what it causes. Like, but really what you should understand is what is lactose and how does that inflame your body and how does your body react to it? Because all of us have individual biomes, right? There's no diet that is set for everybody. Like my diet might be different than Jordan's diet, might be different than my wife's diet. Like it's important to understand your individual biome. And so when I have these conversations with him, I say, these particular items create gluten. And, we talk about like wheats and things like that. And then this is what gluten does. Like when you consume gluten, it causes leakiness out of your gut, which then inflames around your organs. And so what you really need to understand is like, if you have a gluten intolerance, that means that whenever you consume gluten, your entire internal body is inflamed. And then if you continue to eat it, and which is what a traditional diet does, and even what I used to do, which is if you eat toast or cereals that have gluten in it, or donuts or bagels in the morning, and then you eat something like a sandwich or a pizza for lunch, and then something like a pasta for dinner, all you're doing is inflaming your body at breakfast, inflaming your body at lunch, and inflaming your body at dinner, right? But what if you just had a good piece of sourced toast for breakfast, and then you didn't eat anything with gluten in the rest of the day? You would be fine, unless you are truly a celiac or whatever, or you can't have any gluten, right? So it's asking the right questions and not truly just saying, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. Maybe lactose is something that your body can break down easily so that you can enjoy milk in the morning, or you can enjoy ice cream at night, right? And so everybody's body is different. And I would ask everybody that when they try to understand their individual biome, like the easiest way to do that is create a diet of elimination, detoxifying first, and then introduce all the normal foods that you normally eat. And you'll know, like, when you feel different about eating a particular food, then either A, get curious and ask why, like what's in this food, what chemical compounds are made in this plant or this food product that I'm eating or meat, and why does it make me feel that way? And should I eat it, or should I eat it in moderation? If it doesn't impact you at all and you feel vibrant after eating it, then you know, like, that should be part of your diet. And so the thing that I personally went through, which I believe we asked in the beginning, is my wife and I went through what's called like emptying your rain barrel. And so there's a book written by Stephen Cabral, Dr. Stephen Cabral, and he talks about detoxifying your body, not only from a food aspect, but toxins in the home. And so what is in your kitchen that could be creating like mercury levels or any radiation, mold, and all those things that are toxins that you're just carrying around with you every day, right? That could be step one. That also includes like what toxins are available in the food, like fertilized food or food with high processed ingredients in it, food dyes and things like that. And so try to detoxify or empty your rain barrel to start with. And then you can consider using some type of diet plan out there or develop your own. We did the Whole30 program because we found it easiest to introduce raw foods back to be able to build our diet first. And then after you do that, you introduce everything. For me personally, I slowly learned like I needed to eliminate peanut butter. And I was super sad about this, man, because I love peanut butter, right? And I had to eliminate oatmeal because my body couldn't process it. And then breads. Every time I ate bread, I would feel a little bit bloated and everything digestively. And so I slowly eliminated those things, and I don't eat them. But it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy them once in a while. I just know that it might make me feel a little bit bad, and then I need to let my body actually detoxify. And the last comment I'll make here, Jordan, too, is like what's really cool is everybody, I think, probably understands when somebody says fasting or intermittent fasting. And if you haven't, like, I would encourage you to at least look it up and research it. But it's truly the concept of eating the food, letting the food break down and detoxify out of your body, then eating again. And what I mean is like eat breakfast, don't eat a snack in between, eat lunch, don't eat a snack in between, and then fast for 12 to 14 hours after dinner from, let's call it 6 to 6 a.m. The next day. And the reason why that's so impactful is your body was built to detoxify what it doesn't need. So we just have to give your body back that what it should do, right? And you can't, the more you feed it throughout the day, the less time it has to actually process and detoxify the things that it doesn't need.
So this whole detoxifying comes down to us fasting in essence.
Yeah. I mean,
Giving our body time to handle it. I'm just trying to figure out if those are the words, because Tony talked about that as well, where it's, hey, you got to detox because you have a lot of acid buildup. And I was like, what do I do? Does that mean I just skip breakfast? Does that mean, how do I handle this?
Yeah, and I would say no to that. Like there you can do like 24-hour fasting and all that. And it's not to say that there are benefits out there, actually proven benefits to that. But it's giving your body the right amount of time to actually break down the foods you eat for you to determine how you feel throughout that process. And then if you didn't feel great, if you wanted to help your body detoxify, then it's figuring out the supplements that can actually help you do that. And so I actually shared a post today around cytokines, which are neurons, molecular neurons that communicate within your body. And one way that you can help the anti-inflammatory cytokines, which basically help reduce inflammation in the body, is to eat things with omega-3 fatty acids. And so it's about finding those things that can help you. And so if you're already doing a fasting and you're trying to detoxify from something, figure out what that is. And so if it's acid, figure out what foods you can eat or supplements you can take that can actually help you reduce that acid and inflammation in your body.
Yeah, this is fascinating because this isn't a topic I talk too much about. So I appreciate this insight that you're sharing. Troy, for you, what was the difference afterwards, after you started really diving into this, realizing what you and Tiffany were looking for? How has it changed your life? And then we'll dive into what is Farm Brigge today and how maybe people can get involved.
Yeah, I like, so I've got a buddy of mine. His name's Mark Metry. He used to run a big podcast called Human 2.0 podcast, but now he's a social anxiety coach. And one thing that we always talk about when we have conversations is that food impacts the way we feel, and it truly does. Like, and if you're a follower of like functional medicine or naturopathic medicine, or like Dr. Mark Hyman out there, that constantly talks about food as medicine, like what you put in your body will shape the way that you feel. And so the way that I like to look at this is like, as soon as my wife and I not only like got to bond around an experience of detoxifying and giving back to ourselves, but how it makes us feel helps us interact in the moments with each other, with our kids, with the family that we love. Like, I'm no longer feeling like drained, right? I'm no longer feeling like I don't want to play something because I have a stomach ache or whatever it is. And so I like to think of it as like, if you get your body back to its whole state, then sky's the limit. Like, start using that and amplify how you feel to get things done, to take the action. Like, you're less likely to take action on something when you don't feel good. You're less likely to take action when you get zero sleep, and food has a lot of problems with that. Like, if you eat a late bedtime snack every night, guilty. I used to do it almost every night. There's sleep studies done that says every time that you do that, you don't allow your brain to actually detoxify and get into the REM sleep and the deep sleep patterns that you need to be able to jumpstart your next day. And so all of that relates to each other. And so if I'm not getting the right sleep, then I'm not taking the right action the next day. And so
Yeah.
the best thing that I can say is, like, once you give that back to yourself, the way you're going to feel is going to be the way that is going to allow you to execute on the things that you love to do. And you're going to get to do it with the people that you care most about.
Oh, I love that. That's incredible. And where are we at with Farm Bridge? What is Farm Bridge doing today? Obviously, we heard a little bit of the progression, but where's it at today with 10x incubator, and what's the goal?
Yeah. So we're going bold now. Like, back then it was, how can I just help out any way I can? Let's just get my feet in the ground. But we're going bold, man. And we're on a mission really to create 100,000 farmers markets across the US. And then as a result, we want to reduce healthcare spending by $100 billion and help the nation become carbon neutral by 2030. There's a huge push right now. If you ever visited like regeneration.org, it's a huge mission around getting the planet back to where it needs to be by 2030. And food is one of them. Food, health, and farming is one of them. And we're hoping to make that change with what we're doing. But what does that mean? And so basically what we've done is we've created a way, technology, where if I'm either a food health advocate or I'm somebody that is an entrepreneur that wants to earn extra income, and I'm talking like anywhere between like $25,000 to $50,000 in additional income, working from my home, my business, like I said earlier, it could be a chiropractic clinic, you could be a life coach, yoga studio, gym, wherever, church. You can buy into a Farm Bridge. We create the entire online farmers market model for you. We help connect you to food producers and farmers in your community. And then we give you the tools to be able to communicate and promote to your neighbors. So whether that's your clients, the people that live next to you, people that are driving through from work, they get your store link, they shop, and then basically the farms and food producers drop it off at your location, and then they can pick it up. And so what we wanted to do was basically bring all of that atmosphere of a farmer's market into every single zip code as possible. Therefore, it's not about how can I make it to a market on a Saturday? How can I make it on a Wednesday from 10 to 2? I've got busy kids or busy activities with kids. We're going to bring it all to you. And then we're also going to pay the person that acts as the advocate for giving you that access point for the local food. And so that's kind of in a summary how that works. And then we're pre-launch right now, but people can buy in at $4.99 a year and locked in, or after launch, it jumps up to $9.99 a year. But one of the most exciting things too happening behind the scenes is we're creating inventory hub technology for farmers and a farm university to help build career farm worker skill sets, so they know how to operate a regenerative farm. They know how to step onto any farm and help run it, because resources are scarce in that industry, just like any industry right now around labor. And then the inventory hub is to allow the farmer to basically sell across any marketplace, leveraging from one spot, and then slowly learn about pricing, benchmarking, customer demands in the area, what they should put into the ground. Some really exciting things going on behind the scenes to help build sustainable agriculture.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's exciting. It's fun. It's cool. And I'm excited for your journey to go on and follow it from afar, or maybe even get up close. Who knows? Um, so Troy, for you, another thing I want to add in is you mentioned about questions several times and asking ourselves better questions. Where did that come from, and how has that changed your trajectory of life or your impact and how you feel about yourself?
Yeah, daily. You have to do it daily. And so I often talk with students and I try to keep it at a level that they understand, right? Because you can just imagine, Jordan, like when we were in middle school or high school, like
Yeah,
somebody comes in and says, yeah, well, you can go out and create this. And like, have you done personal reflection today? They're like, the heck are you talking about? So,
yeah,
so what I try to break this down is like, first of all, wake up thinking no 0 days. And what does that mean? It just means taking one step towards the progression of where you want to be someday. And so just think about what it would look like to do X of what you want to do. And it doesn't even mean that that's where you're going to end up. But if you take one step towards that every day, no 0 days, that's step one. And then in order to do that, we have to ask ourselves, what do we care about? And so whenever I'm in schools, I don't break it down to like, all right, well, let's get out a white piece of paper and let's really design this life plan for you. I just say like, what do you care about? Like if you're a swimmer, why do you think you care about swimming? And I just take them through a series of like two questions. And they're like, well, I like being in the pool. Why do you like being in the pool? Well, because when I'm in the pool, it makes me feel secure. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good. I'm an athlete. I love being around team and competitiveness. And I said, great. So, one thing you really care about in life is finding something that makes you feel secure, competitive, and community, right? I mean, in essence, right? That's what you feel like. And then we'll dig in and say, well, what would it look like to create something where you could do that the rest of your life? And sometimes, it's, well, I would love to be a professional swimmer. That's great. But what else would that look like? Like, what else could you create an idea of that? And then they start to draw a little bit of a map of something that looks like what they want to be. And the only thing that benefits at that age is getting used to asking themselves, what do they care about? Because every single day we wake up with so many distractions that we start to care about everybody else's plans. We start to care about how other people are behaving, looking, doing, having fear of missing out, whatever it is. And we slowly start to get off of our plan and onto somebody else's plan because we're lost. And so just if you can just ask yourself, check in once in a while about what you care about, you'll get on the right path. And so I journal is how I've kind of figured this out. I have like life check charts, which is I think going a little bit overkill, but like I have a progress card that says like, am I growing to be a better dad today? Am I a better husband today? Did I do a good job of giving back to my health? Did I do a good job of growing? Like what did I learn new today? And so I have like a progress chart that I usually follow. And then I have a journal, and the latest journal I love to share is I've got a friend and a connection of mine. His name is Yannick Silver. He created this concept called Cosmic Journal, and he's building like a network of people around, just doing amazing things in this world. But his Cosmic Journal is awesome because a lot of times, like we go to write, and unless we're a writer or we're really good at journaling, like we've been doing it for a while, journaling just feels like something we just don't want to do, or it's last on our list, right? We get to the end of the night, we're like, I should journal today. Nope. I'm going to watch Netflix or I'm going to do whatever, right? And so why this is really cool, and I want to share this, is like within the journal, like he's doodled. So there's really cool graphics in there, but he's also put in there reflections. And they're like you reflections. And like, have you actually like looked at yourself and told yourself like you love yourself? And they're like, how ridiculous does that sound? But how true does that actually mean in life? Like,
yeah,
if you don't love yourself, then how are you giving any love to anybody else? And so like every journal entry sparks a thought, and it just gets you like inspired to write. And so if you are struggling with that, then I would encourage you to check out the Cosmic Journal or some type of creative journal to get you going.
Absolutely. I love that. And it is amazing when we start changing our questions, changing who we are. And I don't think your checklist is overkill. I think it's actually very important for striving towards our goals. We have to see that progression, which is really true. So, Troy, I know our time's coming to an end. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more about FarmBridge? If they're interested in investing, what would that look like? Where's all this located?
Yeah. So if you're interested in buying in your farmers market for your community, you can go to farmbridge.com, and that's FARMBRIGGE. So it's not DGE, it's GGE.com. And then you can buy in early, or you can look at it after lunch. We are actually looking for strategic alliances and investors that are curious. And so if you are curious in that, please reach out to me directly, and we can send a pitch deck and an investment circular so you can understand what we're up to and the mission that we're on. And that also includes Snappier. And so I know you talk about it as much, but it's an e-wallet tech platform for food assistance programs. And so if you're curious about that, you can go and check out the initial build that's running live right now, and that's snappier.app, and that's snappier.app, and you can see what we're doing in the food assistance space around local food. And then the last thing, you can connect with me on social. I'd love to hear from you: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Troy Rice. And then I do have a personal website that I blog on, and help any type of speaking engagement. So if for some reason it hit home with you today around bullying or mindset or agriculture in general, and you'd love for me to speak with your students, I can be reached at troyrice.life. So that's LIFE at the end.
Awesome. We'll put all those link in the bio. Troy, this has been awesome. Thank you for just causing us to think a little bit differently and be a little bit more thoughtful about the food we put in our body and providing a solution for us. It's honestly pretty amazing. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.